Hey, Ashes to Ruby's family. Welcome back. Jon here. And today I got special guest, Marc. Hey, how you doing, Marc? You're with Iron Ministry. And we crossed paths many years ago, a couple decades ago. 2005, I was around there. You were 2003. And I got to hear your story. We hung out a little bit. I got to know your ministry and the heart behind it. And you can tell our viewers about it. But we have something very important to talk about, and the word is stigma. So if we wanted to define stigma, we would just say marked, or putting a dot on, or discriminating, or labeling. And it's a catchword now. And so our goal today is to understand what stigma is, and then we want to break it, smash it, destroy it, flex on it, and be able just to help disintegrate the stigmas that we have on addiction and mental health. So just share about who you are and why you're here.
Okay.
Well, you kind of shared why we're here.
Yeah, so thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Cheers. Carlington Booch. Yeah.
Yeah, his great booch, by the way. All right, so my background, I took police foundations. When I was a younger lad, I decided I was going to save the world. So I thought being a police officer was going to save the world. We realized that's not really how it happens. I ended up in police foundations, graduated, applied for the police force, and I was told when I started applying, I was really young. I think I was 18 when I graduated. They basically said, listen, you don't have enough life experience, so go out into the world and have experiences and then come back to us when you're ready. Tried a couple different security jobs, but obviously money wasn't great in security, so I had to have multiple jobs. During my tenure in the school, I was volunteering at the Union Mission.
Okay.
And that's where my experience led to my disdain as a result of the stigma of the experiences that I had.
Okay.
So I judged the book by the cover, but I didn't see the underlying pain that was coming from those experiences. I didn't have the emotional or spiritual maturity to really deal with something so complicated and so intimate and personal in people's lives. I go through school, I develop a stigma volunteering at the mission, and then as I graduate, they tell me I don't have enough life experience.
So what is your stigma? What is that?
That's a really good question. And by the way, just to be clear, I do not carry that stigma. I have nothing but love.
I get it.
For anybody that's in the type of need.
That's why this conversation is so important.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And actually, I'm going to explain it, but what's changed my heart is actually getting to know the people of whom I had stigmatized, which is crazy when you think about it, right? I thought I knew them, but I didn't. So the way I had them marked is I felt like they were lowly, scummy.
And by they, who are you talking about?
The homeless people.
Homeless, okay.
And I kind of grouped everybody into
where you did your placement.
My placement.
Yeah.
And part of that is because I was a scrappy kind of guy. I have a martial art background. So when people didn't want to deal with a particular physical altercation, or if it got to that, then I was involved. So when somebody was misbehaving or high on drugs, or they needed to be thrown out because they didn't respect the rules, then I was the one to put them out.
Kind of like the bouncer.
I was the bouncer.
Yeah.
I was actually part of what I did.
Yeah.
I judged people based on those experiences, and I thought that the homeless people were there because they deserved to be there, because they screw people in their lives, because I would have the family members show up and they didn't want to talk to them and they're trying to help them. I saw the bad side of everything. So in fairness to me, I only got one side of the story. And that's where...
So then the stigma marked everybody that you saw.
Yeah, so then I'd drive on the side of the road and a homeless guy would come by my window, for money or whatever. I'm like, he just wants to buy drugs. And that may or may not be true. I mean, I can't judge that experience. I can't judge that person by my experience. However, they were marked through and through. That's what I had.
Well, in our corresponding stories, we were down there at the same time-ish. You're a young man trying to get a career going and be beneficial and have purpose and meaning in your life, which is a noble character. And then I'm down there because of my 15-year addiction. And I got to the point where I couldn't die and I couldn't live. Wow. And I ended up down at the Ottawa Mission. Wow. And I remember going in there with kind of the same stigmas. Like, I'm down there on the streets, but I actually owned a house and a couple cars. Wow. But I was so in such a psychotic state that and just crazy that I didn't even go to my home, or I wasn't even in my car. The paranoia and all that stuff isolated me from everything that I owned, everything that I cared about. So there I am at the Ottawa Mission, got into their program, in their stabilization program. And I remember going in there going like, I'm scared of homeless people. Like, they're all going to rob me. They're going to like... So I was very guarded. But when I got in there, I'm like, man, these are some of the most caring, loving people. Yeah, don't leave your wallet around or don't leave a pack of smokes around. But at the same time, they care for each other. Yeah. And so I was down there. I was probably 3 days in trying to get my head together. And then I go into the soup line, and there I see a guy probably from your school. He did police foundations, but I grew up with him in high school. Wow. And I saw him and I'm like, I just wanted to put my head, I'm in the line. It's too late. I'm getting my food, and there I see him, and we locked eyes. And I felt the shame and the guilt of him working there and me having to try to survive there and be part of the culture there. And so I was embarrassed. I didn't want him to even recognize me or see me. Wow. But he was really good because he gave me a big hug. And he's like, Ruby, it's so nice to see you. Wow. I don't even think he said, how are you doing? I'm not even sure. I'm like, like I'm at a homeless shelter. I'm like, obviously things are
not the best place to meet, or maybe.
But I came in with my stigma as well. You came in with your stigma. Yeah. And so what's the limiting factor of that? Well, I really believe like what I came in with was this shame and embarrassment. And so stigma is kind of a collective of people deciding or cultivating ideas and beliefs that homeless people or mental health issues or addiction, those people make their beds and they sleep in it. It's their choice. Yeah. They're down there. They're drains on society. They're never going to get it because I've known a couple of addiction people in our family, and they keep relapsing and relapsing, and it's like they keep making these choices and they're horrifically immoral. And so when we look at these belief systems that I get to hear, you get to hear, and then these issues start happening. I start having a bit of psychosis. I start having depression. I start having anxiety disorders. I have panic attacks. Wow. And then I might go to a pill or a bottle or a line or whatever it is just to like numb the pain or give me medication. And now I'm trapped because I don't want to be exposed. Wow. Because you have the stigma and you have the stigma and you have the stigma, and you're going to look at me in a bad light and judge me, and that causes me to be even isolated more because mental health issues, addiction issues actually isolate us in the first place, but then the cultural stigma at a societal level even isolates us even more. And that's where we get laws and regulations, and we are called those people. And so breaking stigmas, stop calling us those people. Stop making pockets of people with beliefs and values attached to them. It's kind of breaking the stigma. Right. Going to expose yourself, doing street outreach, joining some of the stuff that we do with addictions and outreach stuff is really good to break that stigma. I think ultimately what happened to me was I was in a place that I could recover, that I could find the solution that I was always looking for because I found it in drugs and alcohol. Right. And that only had a shelf life. But really understanding the problem is addiction a mental health problem, or is mental health an addiction problem? I think we try to separate them because I think we can feel compassion for the guy or the girl that's going through their depression. And they might have tried to take their life. But they're not like, they're not causing such a tornado in the families. And so I think even now that the addiction and mental health stigmas have been separated.
Yeah.
So the stigma around mental health has drastically disappeared.
Right.
I think at some level it's easier to talk about. People talk about their
There's a lot of
anxiety
awareness.
disorders and that kind of stuff, especially coming out of COVID.
Yeah.
There was a lot of that anxiety and tension and isolation and all that stuff. And now we can talk about it, and there's hope and healing in that, because that is one of the solutions to mental health and addiction, is being able to be vulnerable, coming out of isolation, being connected in our culture, in our society, and in groups. But if we have stigma, then we leave those people out, those people.
Correct.
And so I believe that addiction is part of a mental health issue.
Yeah.
So we can look at all of us, and we've probably all gone through trauma, or at least know somebody that has. And maybe that trauma manifests itself in different ways. Some of us can deal with it effectively. Some of us go to counseling. Some of us use that to actually strengthen us, and we can operate in forgiveness. And great for you.
Yeah.
But then some of us just swim in it, and some of us try to kill ourselves, and then some of us try to numb it with alcohol and drugs and pills and medication, and get caught up into the system and rehabs. And it's just going around in circles until ultimately we're isolated enough and we die. It's a very sad death. So you came in with a stigma. You have grown and changed, as I have. I had stigmas against police, against homeless people.
Yeah.
I'm at a homeless shelter. You're at a homeless shelter in a different capacity with same stigma.
Yeah.
And my encouragement to everybody is just get involved. If we have prejudices and discriminations, just understand that the people that you have those beliefs against can lose their lives. So my encouragement is get involved.
Yep.
Pick up a ministry or an outreach that you can be involved in and volunteer, maybe a soup kitchen or a soup pantry, or even like our SOS street outreach team run by Gerald. If you want to see some stuff down there, Gerald probably talks about 600, 700, 800 people, men and women on the street, sticking needles in their arm, overdosing, giving out soup and sandwiches. Not soup, but sandwiches and muffins and clothing. And if you get down there and roll up your sleeves, you can't help but like understand that they're real people too. And so through the stigma, we change the government. The government comes up with rules and regulations and laws. And if we can be all inclusive of like getting involved, reaching out, acting in love.
Yeah.
And I think that's the antidote to the stigma. But we believe that the value that we all have, the most prized possession that you and I have, is our stories.
Yes.
So once we just share our stories, once we have these kind of conversations, because I'm pretty sure if you and me have stigmas, and where we had them, you worked and I lived. So I'm assuming that most people would have some sort of stigma. We have a God that has created us all perfectly and beautifully in his image. And so how can we be the love of God? It's like, does it matter what you do? It matters who you are.
Right.
And so let's get to know you. Let's get to know you.
God works in incredible ways, the way that I see it. And he took a man like myself who had a stigma, and I had branded you guys. But what changed my heart is coming in and seeing for myself with an open mind and an open heart, because a stigma closes a door to your heart, right? Yeah. And the first thing you need to do outside of everything is to leave a crack in the door open by taking your personal experiences and your prejudices and your branding of those people, remove it. Take that out and just say, I'm going to see, because if you open the door to your heart, it gives you the ability to connect with the heart of the other person. So first things first, they are people. Homeless people or people with addictions are people. And oftentimes the biggest pain that they'll experience is rejection. And I just can't understand how somebody who's been rejected by society, that we feel that we're going to continue to reject them. So then what happens with them? One of two things happens. They either destroy themselves or they are destroyed by something else. If you can walk by those people and say, okay, I'm okay that they all die. Okay, then that's maybe we should be looking at your character. But if you have a heart for humanity, you have a heart for people, and in Christ, what I found is that we're all his children. So God's told me, love everybody, because that's what Jesus did. So when you start to say, I want to love everybody, then you got to approach everybody with an open heart, an open mind, eyes to hear, ears to hear, eyes to see, and a heart to receive. And that's a scripture that has been the foundation of my walk in my present life, which has led me to ashes to rubies. And it's led, what my heart is now, it's swollen, like the Grinch, right? Because I have so much love for these people of whom have suffered so much that I just want to pour, I want to pour my heart out.
Every morning, you just say to yourself, how do I be helpful today? And is that giving the guy that's asking you for change a $5 bill and not worrying about where it goes because it doesn't matter?
Right.
Or is it getting your sleeves rolled up and volunteering at a soup kitchen, handing out sandwiches, coming to a recovery meeting, bringing people into a recovery meeting? Any of those things. So I leave you with that today.
Showing up at their monthly Ashes to Rubies. Yo, that's amazing. You got to come to that. Yeah, it's so good.
Last Saturday of the month.
Yeah.
And how can I be helpful today?
I like that.
All right, Mark and Jon, we'll see you next month. Have a great rest of the day.
Amen.